Hi folks, welcome to another set of 8th grade science video notes. Today we'll be talking about the properties of matter. There are two types of properties. We have physical properties and chemical properties. Physical properties are properties that can be observed or measured without changing the chemical makeup of the substance. So you can measure the mass, for example, without changing the object. So you can measure the mass of a piece of chocolate, for example, without changing the fact that it's a piece of chocolate. Then we have chemical properties, which are properties that can't be observed or measured without changing the chemical makeup of the substance. So for example, a piece of wood. If we wanted to test the chemical property of flammability on the piece of wood, we would have to catch it on fire. Once we catch it on fire, the part that's been caught on fire is no longer a piece of wood. So some physical properties you might have heard of. There's the state, whether it's a solid, liquid, or gas. The density, luster, is it shiny or not? Malleability, can you hammer it into thin sheets? Odor, does it smell? Texture, what does it feel like? Color, what's the melting point? What's the boiling point? There's a whole bunch of them. These are properties that you can observe using your five senses. So you can see that gold is shiny, or you can hear that a gong has a lot of resonance. You could feel that the eraser on a pencil is bendable, etc., etc. Now I know you know about the states of matter, but we're going to do a quick review just to make sure that we're all on the same page. Solids, these are substances that have not yet reached their melting point. All of the atoms and molecules in the substance are very close together in fixed positions. It has a definite volume and a definite shape. So you can measure the volume and you can measure the shape of it. We have liquids. Liquids are substances that have reached their melting point, but they haven't quite gotten to the boiling point yet. In liquids, all of the atoms or molecules in the substance are close together, but they can move freely past each other. There is a definite volume, but it doesn't keep its shape. It takes the shape of whatever container it's in. And then gases. Gases have passed the melting and boiling points. In a gas, all of the atoms and molecules are very far apart and moving very quickly. Because of this, we can't really measure a gas's volume because it changes so much based on what temperature it is. It does take the shape of its container, though, just like a liquid. It might be handy to copy down this chart and maybe draw these little particle diagrams so you can remember whether solids, liquids, and gases have a definite shape or definite volume and what those particles look like at the molecular level. One of the physical properties I mentioned was density. Density is the amount of mass per unit of volume of a substance. We could also call it the degree of compactness of the particles of a substance, so how close together the particles are. We usually use the unit of grams per centimeter cubed, but it's the same as grams per milliliter. Those are interchangeable, so we could use either. Density does not depend on how much of a substance you have, unlike mass or volume. So mass, if you have more of something, it's going to weigh more, right? Or volume, if you have more of something, it's going to take up more space. But because density is a ratio of the mass to volume, the more mass you have, the more space it takes up, then the density is going to remain the same no matter the size of the sample of a substance you have. Okay, now we'll go into some chemical properties, which we're not going to talk too deeply on yet, but you need a general idea of what they are. So flammability, basically, will it catch on fire? Reactivity is whether it reacts with other chemicals or not. pH, is it an acid or a base? Heat of combustion, and that's how much energy is released when it burns. Toxicity, how much can it damage a living organism? And radioactivity, how stable is the substance? Is it likely to decay quickly and give off radioactive particles? All of these chemical properties, in order to test them, you have to do some kind of chemical reaction that changes the substance you're testing. That's what makes them a chemical property. It's important for you to know three equations you might ever need. So one is D equals M over V. That's the basic form of the density equation, and that's how you find density. You take mass divided by volume. The second one is same equation, we just move the variables around so we can solve for mass. And then the one for volume is, first question says we have a sample of wood that has a mass of 10 grams and a volume of 20 milliliters. So, what is the density? Since we're looking for density, we'll use the D equals M over V, and we'll just plug our numbers in. M is 10 grams, and the volume is 20 milliliters. So we get 0.5 grams per milliliter. Our second problem says we have a sample of lead that has a volume of 5 centimeters cubed. And according to this, the density of lead is 25 grams per centimeters cubed. So, what is the mass of our sample? So we plug it into our second equation here. M equals volume times density. Notice we have centimeters cubed on top and centimeters cubed on bottom, so that cancels out, leaving us with 125 grams. It says we have a sample of plastic that has a mass of 15 grams, and the density is 2.5 grams per milliliter. Since we're looking for volume, we'll use V equals M over D. And we plug it in, we get 15 grams divided by the 2.5 grams per milliliter. Grams will cancel out, milliliters will come to the top, and you get about 6 milliliters.